Hurley, I'm not quite sure if that's how you pronounce that, Trial Advocacy Award by the Jacksonville Bar Association. It's awarded annually in recognition of an example set through steadfast obedience to ethics, professionalism, preparation, respect to all parties in the legal process, aggressive advocacy, mentorship, scholarship, and a drive to do what is right, even when at odds with billable hours and fees. But probably most impressive, Mary Bland is the first woman to receive it in the 13 years it's been given. Does anyone else have any other announcements before we do our guest drawing? All right, we have two items today. Hurley, if you wouldn't mind just picking two names out of there. Thank you very much. All right, the first item is a Meninak coffee mug. So if you're wearing your pin, Melanie Messer.
I wanted the portion.
The second item is something I'm pretty excited about. I really got to thank Dr. Rothberger for bringing this. It is, I don't know if I've ever seen one of these, to be honest with you. This is a fresh, newly minted Denver Broncos Super Bowl ring that I'm not exactly sure who or what or he had to do to acquire this, but it's really quite impressive. So JF, Brian, if you're wearing your pin, come on down. And it is beautiful, I got to tell you. Well, you at least got to look at it because it's just a piece of blue plastic. What a fail. All right, so I guess I'll just keep it. We can talk about it later. All right, that concludes my announcement.
Bill, would you please give us a presidential moment?
Thank you, Chris. And I'd like to thank Pete Halleck for that excellent advice about looking where you're going when you're driving a race car. Now, I'd like to ask you, how do I get my passengers to do that as well? Because most of the time when I'm driving my Corvette, my passengers are like this. I was asked to tell you why I joined the Meninak Club. What it means to me and why I love it so much. And this is something I could talk about for a long time, but I've been convinced that this is a presidential moment and not the presidential hour. Plus we have a high-speed, low-drag speaker right here that will be much more interesting. But my wife Karen and I moved to Jacksonville in 2005, and later that year I had the privilege of meeting retired U.S. Army Colonel Joseph Bland Love, who'd been a Meninak at that time for about 25 years. Joe was someone that I had greatly admired, and we had a few things in common. He had served as an Army officer in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. I came along a little bit later, and I served a couple of times in Vietnam, 2 separate years, and I did the thing in the Desert Storm, and I survived a couple of very difficult assignments in the Pentagon, the original Puzzle Palace. My friend Joe has since passed on, but Mary Bland Love, his daughter, has been a member for, I think, about 18 years. So the legacy continues. Shortly after we met, Joe asked me to come with him to lunch here at the Meninak Club. And I wish I'd written it down because he had this perfectly convincing elevator speech about why I should join and become a member of this club. I forget who the speaker was in my first meeting, but he was very informative about what was going on in Jacksonville at the time. And that was important to me as a newcomer to know what's going on here. It made me feel welcome and like I could be a part of it. So I came back once more as a guest and I joined the club. And I was impressed immediately by the goals of the club and the objectives, which are defined in our credo, especially the part, I believe in the youth of our country. I believe that service to youth is insurance for the preservation of democracy. And that just resonated with me. And I very quickly became involved in the club, and I volunteered to be on the scholarship committee and on the scholarship grant committee, and I enjoyed it. And I was impressed by the good works that the club does for our community: scholarships, charity grants, Salvation Army bell ringing, cattle counting, the toy drive, the lifeguard ocean swim, and many other things that we do. And then President Bunkie Johnson in 2009 added mentoring to a repertoire of things that we do, and I have become a mentor, and I've recruited my wife Karen to become a mentor as well with Take Stock in Children, so we're doing that. For you new members, I have some advice for you. Get involved in the club. Get on committees. Become involved. We need you, and you need us. You'll be recognized and be asked to serve on the board. You'll be recognized and be asked to serve as president of this club, and you will get more out of it than you put in. I spent most of my adult life in the U.S. Army as an officer serving our country. I believe that service to others is something that we should all actively seek to do. The Meninak Club resonated with me, and I joined to be a part of something larger than myself, to serve others. I love this club and its members, at least most of them, and the works that the club does, and I'm committed to being a lifetime member. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Very nice comment. Now I'd like to introduce the introducer, and my good friend and member Tiger Terry asked me to keep it short, but I then reminded him that he's been gone for so long, no one remembers who he is, so I just think I'll do the full thing. Tiger was born in Istanbul, Turkey. He is an entrepreneur. Career started by a small radio station with his brother before moving to the United States while they were teenagers. After moving to the U.S., he received a BS in marketing and international business from Jacksonville University. While attending college full-time, Tiger, along with his full-time college student brother, owned and operated 2 Italian restaurants and a software company called Web for Minds, which they still run to this day. At the time of his first business in the U.S., he was only 20 years old. He has tremendous energy, and it gave him the opportunity to also participate in college football, crew teams, and also coached a youth soccer team for 2 years. In 2007, Tiger got a master franchisee rights to a Papa John's pizza for the country of Turkey. The first store opened in August of 2008 and currently is in the process of developing stores nationally. In 2011, they started a venture cap company to venture software companies. One of the companies the venture capped, called Moisture Mapper, is that right? Yeah. As Moisture Mapper International has revolutionized the property insurance water mitigation industry and currently is expanding internationally. His passion to give back to the community, along with his friends that started the multicultural network group, Guys with Ties, and currently has been a member for over 5 years, and is also involved with the World Affairs Council and Fashion Group International. Please give him a warm welcome to Tiger Terry.
I know you guys rather hear his story than mine, but thank you, Chris. So yes, I am a member, even though I've been not showing up lately, and I've been a bad member. Life has taken pretty busy things that, I had to attend to, but I'm still a member. I'm not gone. I'm always going to be a member. First of all, thank you so much for coming here today, Hurley. And I'm going to tell you guys my personal experience, which I used to share that with him. I went to 2 of his training schools. One of them is in Alabama. He wasn't there at that time, but then there's one in Gainesville they do, which is the Brumos experience. What I learned from him is I was yanking my, just because you can go lift really quick with your arms doesn't mean the car is going to go that quick. So he gave me a very good lesson. He said the car has to follow, so just remember that. It's not you going left and right as quick, it's the car has to follow what you do, so give it some time. It's a good lesson. If the car is out of control or you're trying to take a turn at a high speed when being chased by a cop, Hurley Haywood, winner of more endurance classics than any other driver in the racing history, has 5 Daytona 24-hour wins, 3 Le Mans, did I say that right? 24-hour wins, and 2 Sebring 12-hour wins. Vice President of Brumos Porsche, Haywood also serves as Chief Driving Instructor for the Porsche School Driving School and Brumos Driving Experience. After retiring full-time from driving, 2008, Haywood returned to the Brumos number 59 for the Rolex 24 at Daytona, scoring the 3rd place in 2009 and 5th in 2011 as Brumos returned to GT competition and claimed the championship. 2012 marked his final run for the 50th Daytona 24. It was also his 40th Rolex 24 start, appropriately ending in victory lane with a 3rd place finish. Haywood's honors include induction into Florida Sports Hall of Fame, the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America, the Sebring Hall of Fame, Watkins Glen's Legend of the Glen. He was chosen to serve as the General Marshal for the 2013 Rolex 24 at Daytona, and then selected for the, I'm definitely going to say this wrong, SIM1, is that how you say it? SIM1? Automotive Museum Spirit Competition in 2014. He was also chosen by the RRDC for their 2014 Phil Hill Award. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Mr. Haywood.
Thank you, Tiger. It was a nice feeling when I drove into the parking lot to see so many Porsches, high-performance Porsches. Tiger's silver GT3 was out there, which was gorgeous looking, and had a bunch of kids around it. So it's nice to see that the room is filled with motorsports enthusiasts. When I first came to Jacksonville, I was born and raised in Chicago, and in doing so, I was sick and tired of cold weather, so I came down here to college. I got accepted to JU. I liked JU. It was a small independent college, and I came there, and unfortunately I came there with my Corvette that I got for graduation. It's a long story, I won't go into that, but that was probably not the best car choice for a college freshman in college, but that car gave me the ability to meet Peter Gregg, who owned Brumos at that time. And he and I became friends. I went to the races with him in the early days. He knew I wanted to start racing, so I was a business major in college, and I wrote this really, really cool proposal to my father, because I had to go to my family to get the funds to start racing. And my dad was so impressed with this business proposal that he said, okay, I'll give you 2 years. After 2 years, if you're not making enough money to continue at the same level, you have to stop and do something more responsible. So I said, that's great, I'll do it, and we'll see what happens in 2 years. Well, all the stars lined up, everything was great. Peter Gregg and myself, on the 3rd race of my career, won the 6 hours at Watkins Glen, the GT portion of it. And I was just on 7th heaven, and then I got my draft notice. And I was on a plane going to Vietnam in November of that year. So I spent all of 70 in Vietnam, came back, processed out of Fort Lee, Virginia, and Peter Gregg and myself won the first IMSA race at VIR, Virginia International Speedway. And that really has set the tone. I was doing a program up in Pittsburgh over the weekend, and the guy that was asking the questions was very well researched in my history. And I was talking to him a little bit about the military experience and how that helped me when I came back to the States to start racing. When you have bullets being shot at you, you tend to grow up really quickly. And when I was 21 years old when I went over there, so I was just a young kid. There was a lot younger people in the military, but it is a good lesson. And one of the things, as a racing driver, I get asked the question a lot: what is some of the special traits that make you different than other racing drivers. And that's the ability to adapt. You have to be able to adapt to lots of different conditions. And I think that that kind of adaptation started within the military. I went from a comfort zone. You know, I never had done anything like that. I went to prep school in Vermont. I grew up in Chicago. You know, I had a really nice life, and suddenly I was dropped in the middle of a hellhole. And it teaches you how to adapt, because there was nothing that I could do was going to change that situation. And you adapt and you try to make the best that you can, and it all came out all right. But the lessons that I learned over there, I think, helped me to have an edge when I came back to the States to start racing in a very competitive series. Peter, Greg, and myself won the first championship in '71. He went into the Can-Am in '72, and he gave me the responsibilities of the GT program. I won the championship outright. And then in '73, the two races that sort of set our career on fire were winning the 24 Hours of Daytona and the 12 Hours of Sebring back-to-back. And that was huge for me and for Jacksonville, really, because Peter and I were basically taking Jacksonville and putting it into an international framework. When our names were in programs all over the world, it always said they're from Jacksonville, Florida. And that's good. That kind of put us in the light, and everybody, we were bragging about how great Jacksonville was. So Bob Snodgrass unfortunately passed away in 2007, but Bob was a really integral part of my development and my association with Brumos. Brumos has been a company that I've been involved with for 50 years. It's been my home. And I'm sure that most of you know that Brumos has been recently sold. The Field Group takes over at the end of March. And I think that the Field Group, and Dan Davis was very sensitive to this fact, that he wanted to have the new owners have the same kind of principles that he had. And I think the Field Group as a group will basically stand for all the things that Brumos has stood for such a long period of time. So I think everybody can be comfortable with the field and with their, you know, charitable donations to all of the hundreds of charities that we support. So I think that's good. But one of the things that Bob started off with us was he wanted to start a school. He wanted our customers, when they would buy new and used cars from us, to be trained how to drive them successfully and safely. And he started our school in 1985. And we've been trucking ever since. And the schooling part, and it's really nice to hear so many people come up to me in this room and say, you know, I went to your school in Gainesville, and some of the things that you taught me saved my life. A gentleman out here said the things that he learned in that school saved his life. So it's nice from a teaching standpoint to realize that the words that are coming out of my mouth are actually getting into your heads, and you're thinking about it as you're driving your cars. So it makes it kind of worthwhile. You know, I know that we've talked about youth, and we've talked about the responsibilities that we as adults have to youth, and it's important. You know, I encourage everybody that has sons and daughters that are young at the driving age to send them through driving programs where they can learn what is going on in an environment that's controlled rather than doing it on the highway, which is an unsafe place to, you know, try to feel like what it feels like to spin out a car. So, and they're going to do it whether you get them trained or not. And they're hopefully they'll, you know, not have a serious accident. So get them trained early on. I'll give you one sort of eye-opening event that I recently did. I was in California, in San Francisco. Microsoft asked me to come out there with their Xbox relaunch. Microsoft is the one that makes the platform that Xbox uses for all their games. And I went out there, and Porsche had given them 20 different cars, ranging from the 550 all the way to the newest race car, which is the 919. And Derek Bell, myself, and Patrick Long did a kind of a walkthrough on a video of what each car meant to us. And so I went out there. There was a couple hundred people. I would say the average age in the room was maybe 35 years old. And it was really interesting to see how reflective and sensitive this younger generation that we sometimes forget about. We forget about the ideas that these young people have in their heads. These young people are going to be the ones that are going to be running this country pretty soon. And it's nice to listen to them talk, and you think of a gamer as being some irresponsible kid, but they're actually very reflective and very sensitive to all the things that are going on in the world today. So we as adults need to really nurture these people and give them all the energy and support that we can. So thank you for inviting me, and it was great seeing everybody. And Brumos will continue. Dan still holds the rights to Brumos, but we just won't be on the building anymore. So thank you very much. Yeah, if anybody's got any questions, I'll be. Yeah, go ahead.
As you drive around Jacksonville today, in your experience, what's the most dangerous common area you see?
Yeah, it's surprising that you asked me that, because I don't know what's going on, because in the last 20 years, the speed that people are driving is ridiculous in this city. And, you know, I'm pretty friendly with the police force out there, and I tell these guys all the time, you need to set up your speed traps here and here, and I guarantee you're going to catch guys that are going 100 miles an hour. And they just do not have the resources to put the people out there to control it. And not only, you know, if you're driving a Porsche at 100 miles an hour, you're driving a car that is designed to do that. When you're driving a minivan that's full of kids at 100 miles an hour, that is not a good idea. And when I'm driving to work, I work up a sweat when I'm driving to work, because it's like a racetrack out there. And I just cannot understand what is going through these people's heads. I mean, minivans, women reading the paper, putting their lipstick, doing their hair, guys driving these big trucks with ladders hanging out of the back. I mean, and going 90 or 100 miles an hour. It just makes no sense. So we just need to, you know, I don't know how you solve that problem, but it's a problem that seems to be getting worse and worse and worse. Anybody else? Yes?
What's going to happen to the Brumos name in the museum?
Dan keeps the name, so the name was not part of the field purchase. So Dan keeps the name. All the cars in the collection remain with Dan Davis, which is really great, because he's got a lot of my cars in there and got my name on it, so I wouldn't want that. And basically the thinking of that was, there was a lot of really major people that were in the bidding process, and it was really kept secret. I didn't even know about it, and I'm a shareholder. So Dan walked into a shareholders meeting that we had in December, and said, okay guys, I've sold a business. But we retained the name of Brumos, so he controls Brumos. We didn't want to have Brumos get out there and suddenly land on the side of Lamborghini or something else that we had nothing to do with. So that part of it is good, and the collection cars are protected, so all that stuff will remain the same.
Will you continue racing?
Brumos, no. I retired from racing in 2012. We raced 2012 and 2013, it continued, and then about the middle of 2013, we didn't like the way the rules were, so we stopped. And there was some discussion about getting back in, but the finances just do not make sense. It's way too expensive for the benefit. The field group, I don't know. I don't know what they do. They do have a Lamborghini that they put their name on, but I don't know if they will continue or even start racing. I think they're going to focus on the business side, getting their feet on the ground, and then they'll make the decision as they go forward. Anybody else?
Does the technology that you've developed for these high-end motor cars, does that trickle down these developments to the other cars, or is this somehow unique to your genre?
No, racing really is the platform for R&D, for research and development. And I think every company uses it to some degree. Porsche more than others. So all the technology that's going into current racing cars, like their P1 program, the cars that won Le Mans this year, very space-looking technology. And those cars develop a very, very expensive form of hybrid technology. And I mean, I'm talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in research and development for the systems that they're currently using in race cars. And I'm always asked the question, well, do I think that is valuable? Do I think that has any relationship to future cars that are coming down the pike? And I say absolutely yes, that technology will be amortized over a certain period of time, and that technology will eventually find its way into the cars that you're driving on the street. And that technology is super sophisticated, but it's going to give high-performance cars still being high-performance cars, but getting 50 or 60 miles to the gallon with that technology. So it's good. Yes.
Your endurance racing, you hear about it, but from your perspective, having been in so many, what are some of the strategies and challenges that you go through as you're preparing or in the middle of one of those races?
So that's a good question. It's changed dramatically from when I started. When we started, we ran a very disciplined pace. We had to be very careful with the cars. We couldn't abuse them. And if we had a problem, we usually could fix the problem, fall back a couple laps, and then make those laps up during the race. As we fast forward to current cars, the races nowadays are like 24-hour sprint races. Guys drive the cars as hard as they can go, and the cars don't break. So your strategy is very difficult to strategize a race like that, because they have, and I don't agree with this, but they have sort of these artificial yellow flags every hour. So any advantage that one team gets, the yellow flag comes out and everybody groups back up together again. And then it's another sprint race for an hour, and then you got another flag that comes out. So it just continues on. And the proof to the pudding of that is the finish at Daytona this year. The two Corvettes, the Le Mans Corvettes, finished within inches of each other at the start-finish line after 24 hours. And in my opinion, that takes away the sanctioning bodies and all of the people that run IMSA always wonder, well, why do we not have as much interest as we had in the old days? Well, in the old days, it was the best team that won, the best drivers, the best strategy, and if you got a big lead, that was cool. People liked that, and now that's gone. So I'm hoping that there'll be some kind of sort of relaxing of the cause for those yellow flags. Sometimes you need them, but most of the time you don't. Yep.
Well, is Porsche going to compete with Google or someone else to build the driverless car?
No. Porsche's, that technology is cool technology, but with Porsches are for drivers and they're for people. And I don't think you're going to get Porsche into that driverless car thing. Yep.
Hurley, could you comment on Porsche's move in 17 to turbocharge the 11 and the 11S?
Yeah, I can tell you that I drove those cars when we went out to Runsport, and it was the first cars that were on the American soil, and both the Carrera and the Carrera S got a chance to drive both of them, and they are spectacular. The reason being, we're all conscious about fuel economy and sound, and those requirements in Europe are much stricter than they are here in the States. So the Europeans are sort of forcing the issue, and we're the beneficiaries of that technology. But the technology is really cool. You have a torque band in those cars from very low, 1,700 RPM, and it's a flat curve all the way to 7,000. So you have all this basically low-end torque in a range that most people drive on the streets is low end versus high end, and it makes driving the cars really nice. They sound great. They're super responsive to the throttle. They have a magnificent internet system in it for all of your radio and all the things that are electronic on the car. So they've formed up with Apple for that. So it's really cool deal. You'll be happy when you drive it. And somebody else, yes.
What schools would you recommend for young drivers?
Well, Audi has a really good teen program. They do it in Rhode Atlanta and a couple other venues across the country. So that's a good start. I think you have to be 16 for that school. It just gives them the basic fundamentals on what happens if you lose control of a car. And basically the simple technologies like understeer. What happens if you go into a corner too fast? Well, you're going to understeer, you're going to turn the steering wheel, but nothing's going to happen. The car's just going to plow off the racetrack. Well, if you don't understand that, if you don't understand the principles, and believe me, those things I teach, I've taught thousands of people, and adults don't understand that concept. The biggest problem we have from a teaching standpoint in our performance schools is too fast into the mouth of the corner. They just drive in way too fast, and the car understeers. They spend the whole middle of the corner trying to collect it up, and then their exit speed is nothing. So that's basically, I forgot what your question was now. Oh, the school. Yeah, so we have the Audi school, which is really good. Our school, at the Porsche driving school, you have to be 21 to go through that, but that's still not too late. 21s it's probably a good age to teach a little bit of humility in the driver's seat. So, but Bondurant has a school. Skip Barber has a school. Those you can be younger than 21, 16. I think you can be. Yes.
Can we ever have a racetrack in Jacksonville? We haven't had yet, like Sebring or Atlanta. What is stopping us from having that in Jacksonville? Because it could be a great economic impact to Jacksonville as well.
Well, I would love to have a racetrack in Jacksonville, but when you look, I know how racetracks run, and I know the kind of financial footprint that you have to have, and Jacksonville has much more pressing problems to deal with than building a racetrack here. So we have a great racetrack just down the road in Sebring. We have, or in Daytona, we have Sebring. So you know, maybe eventually as we go forward and we get some of these other problems ironed out in Jacksonville, we can think about running a racetrack here. But everybody initially wanted to do a street race here. And street races just do not financially work for any city. There's no city except St. Pete, and they got a big trust fund behind that whole thing, so they don't have to worry about the finances, but it's a major operation and very costly to do it. Okay, anybody else? All right, well, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Hurley, for your speech. Pete, I'd like to thank you, and Tiger, you as well. Nick, Melanie, Bill, thank you for all your comments and contribution to today's program. No meeting next week. We're going to have a mixer on Thursday at Mitchell's Fish Market in the Town Center starting at 5:30. The next meeting will be March 14th. We'll have John Caulfield, who's a former Cuban chief of missions, so it should be pretty interesting to be brought up to speed on what's going on between the U.S. and Cuba. After today's meeting, we'll have a membership core meeting in the Rope Room. And so if you all please rise with me for a moment of silent prayer for peace, followed by the national anthem.